This week in Sermon on the Mount, Ryan's back. All right. We got you back.
Yeah.
You're going to drop some bombs on us. Love your enemies is the passage.
Yep.
This is going to be easy for some people because when you say love your enemies, there are people that are like, Becky, I hate her, right? And then there's other people, everybody, yeah, if your name is Becky, I'm so sorry, email me, I apologize. But there's a lot of us, I think the idea of enemies, even when we read like David in the Psalms, I'm like, I don't have like these enemies in my life. So, well, give us some context, give us some counsel in as we approach this, as we make those observations.
Yeah,
what do we do with that if we don't feel like we have enemies?
Because it almost feels like a good Christian doesn't have enemies. We're supposed to be nice.
Yeah.
And then you got 2020.
Right. Yeah.
Which sort of elevated the temperature where if you spoke up about anything, you probably do have enemies.
Yeah.
It's whether it's politics or masks or race, where you stand on those things. If you've spoken up, you've got somebody who is at least, saying something mean on social media. So I would just say that I forgot the verse. It's Timothy, 1 Timothy. If you desire to live a godly life, you will be persecuted. So Paul said that. Jesus seemed to assume that we'd have enemies. And I would just say that if you are passionate about Jesus, you will have the right enemies. I think people are more passionate about a lot of, secondary issues.
Sure.
And they have enemies, but they're not necessarily enemies that God would approve of as enemies.
Sure.
We're called to love these people.
We're picking the wrong fights.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
And easier said than done.
Yeah, but a passionate pursuit of Christ is going to produce tension for those who don't understand, for those who are offended by the gospel and the way that we live if our focus on Christ. So,
because you will smell like their judge. People know they're rejecting Christ, and you remind them by loving Christ.
And that's good.
It's just, it'll be convicting to be around you.
Honestly, I think that's convicting just because I don't normally see that observation when we study this idea of loving enemies. I don't go there, but I do think there's an element of maybe I live my life too passive towards the gospel. Maybe I'm picking the wrong fights, right? I think there's a lot of people that, like you said, aren't very passive. But I think really pursuing Christ in a way it does wreak like judgment to those who are perishing. Okay, so let's say we unpack that in our groups more. I think the sentiment of loving your enemies seems like a head nod. Yeah, I know I'm a Christian. I'm supposed to love them.
And then it becomes a tangible thing.
Oh, yeah, but it's massively hard to do. It's massively hard to do. Give us just one kind of nugget or counsel on, just some advice. Again, these groups are going to spend their evening talking about what that looks like in their own lives.
I'm going to be repetitive because I said it last time. The law is supposed to awaken us to our need for the gospel. We should be sort of devastated by these commands. When we see it, it reveals to me, I don't do this well. I need help doing this. And so when I see this call to forgive, to be loving toward an enemy, I just don't do that. I have a hard time loving my own wife if she wasn't nice to me for a couple minutes. Like this is hard to do. So if someone really hurts me and is my enemy, then Jesus calls me to love them and to actually desire from the heart to bless them. That requires something of me I don't have in me, which brings me to my need for Jesus. And the only thing that actually, I think it leads ultimately to the fact that I was loved as an enemy. Romans 5:8 and 5:10. While we were still enemies, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, and that's where my heart starts to soften.
Yeah, that's so good. We hope that tonight, as y'all study this passage, that it reveals some of that it reveals a depth that we need Christ's help for. That the Sermon on the Mount is not behavior modification. Okay, I just need to love them and check that box. That it pushes us to say, I need to experience love from Christ. If I'm going to forget, I need to really understand how well I've been forgiven, how well I've been loved. Our hope is as you get into God's word tonight, that happens in your groups, that you're able to be vulnerable and real with each other and dig deeply of God's word. We love you. We're praying for you. God bless.